program. This was an initiative that we had started a few years back to drive quality across Shankara, because we believe that quality is something that cannot be the responsibility of a single person or a department. And over the period of the last 5 years that we've had this in place, we've managed to increase the level of awareness in terms of quality assurance across our organization. Over the years, we've been recognized with the Ramakrishna Bajaj Quality Excellence Award in healthcare. Multiple times we've been recognized for our Process Excellence Awards. We've also won the Asia Quality Excellence Award, and I'm very proud to share with everyone here that all our hospitals today, barring Indore that we inaugurated last year, today are accredited under the National Accreditation Board for Hospitals. So this shows that all our centers are adhering to what we would expect of an eye care organization of national eminence. And today, as we celebrate World Quality Day, we not only have members who form part of the Sankalp, which ranges from some of you who handle functions as HR representatives or IT representatives, to fellow ophthalmologists, to unit heads, to laboratory in charges. So it's a very diverse mix of people who are leading the drive for quality across Shankara. We also welcome a number of the functional heads who've joined us here today. Also some of our very senior colleagues. It's really heartening to have Dr. Mahajan also be part of this afternoon's function. We are hoping to have some more of the senior leadership also join us in the next few minutes. Without further ado, we will get into the session today. So again, it's my privilege to introduce a very dear friend of mine, Uday Mahajan. Uday and me were batchmates at a senior leadership course that we did together at INSEAD. Uday, as a part of his day job, has been in the corporate world across large multinational corporations, from GE to currently today with Indus Towers, which is the largest mobile infrastructure company in the country. So they set up the various mobile towers on which our mobile networks kind of function on. He has an extreme diverse kind of work profile, ranging from operations in healthcare to technology. And quality is something he's been always very passionate about. He has been a black belt in Six Sigma. He's been an expert in lean management. He's learned multiple models of quality and implemented it. I think what he also managed to achieve with Indus Towers in the last year was Indus Towers became the first service entity, service organization in India, and probably the fourth or the fifth across the world to be recognized with the Deming Prize. So the Deming Prize is probably the Nobel equivalent to the quality awards in the world, and that is something which is phenomenal that he's managed to achieve. Today, our request to Uday has been to kind of walk us through various quality principles, especially looking at the Kano Model. This was proposed by a very eminent scientist from Japan, and Uday has had the fortune of actually working with Dr. Kano. He will also kind of give us an oversight of other quality models that will set us on the path of what we already have embarked in, what we refer to as a TQM. And the challenge, in a sense, that Uday has thrown to us is saying that, can we as an organization aspire to look at the Deming Award, which is the highest award for quality for Shankara over the next 5 to 10 year period. So with that, I hand over the stage to Uday to take charge and then walk us through the session. So the way the session is curated today is Uday will probably address us for about 40 minutes, giving us an oversight of the models. We've set aside about 20 minutes for interaction. Subsequent to that, all those of you who have registered in, we will reach back to you. The idea is to go back and implement some of these models at our own workplaces. We'll probably pick a department or an area. And 3 weeks down, we will again regroup, and we will again probably invite Uday to come back, and we'll present to him what we have done as a learning from this session. So over to you, Uday.
Thanks, Kaushik. That was a very, very long and I think overwhelming introduction to my profile. I don't think it's as great as you made it out to be, but thank you very much regardless. And it's good to see Kaushik in person. By the way, we go back a few years now, and we've had some great times doing that course that he spoke about together. And it's interesting how we come back and get in touch with such like forums. So I see we've got about 38 participants here. It's an honor, firstly, to be part of such a lovely forum, such a diverse forum, especially so because, as Kaushik told me, this has been done as a collective voluntary effort across the organization. And for you to do it consistently, I think I must start by complimenting you, in terms of wherever you've reached in this journey. This journey is never ending, by the way. So whatever you do is only going to make you better and better, but you'll never get there in terms of perfection. But I can guarantee you that this journey is very, very pleasing. It's very, very fulfilling. And any company that embarks on this journey seriously is bound to succeed. And I see that happening with your organization. And it's great to see such a vibrant, forum here, and people across various portfolios. I could never imagine I would be talking to a chain of hospitals one fine day in this context, being an engineer myself. But it's a pleasure, it's an honor, and thank you very much for having me. I think Kaushik has already covered what I would like to cover, rather what we discussed we should be covering in this forum. So I will just bear with me because it takes. So, by the way, I've been exposed to about 6 different forms of web meetings in the last 6 months, and they're all equally confusing. So bear with me if I get stuck somewhere. We'll try and do this in those 40 minutes that Kaushik has articulated. And broadly, I'll be covering, so I think before I get into the coverage, today, as you all know, is World Quality Day. It's I don't know if all of you know this, but the World Quality Day is actually celebrated on the second Thursday of the November of every year. And if I'm not mistaken, this year's theme is creating customer value. And interestingly, we spoke about customers ago as well when Kaushik was talking about some of the things. And it's ironic that the whole session is fitting into that theme as we speak. The concepts that you've chosen today to be spoken about, the Kano model and the QFD, which is the house of quality, are actually very, very customer centric tools, which we will hopefully discover a little more of over the next 30-40 minutes. The agenda is fairly simple. We've got the Kano model that we'll cover. We'll cover the house of quality, and I'll try and link up the basics of TQM to what we discuss in these two tools, to see how the larger picture looks like and where these tools get accommodated in that space. The one request I would have is please unmute and interact, because 40 minutes I don't want to speak throughout. I would like the session to be interactive. Please feel free to ask questions. Of course, there's a Q&A session towards the end, which we can use for that. But intermittently, if you need to add anything from your side, or if you'd like to pass a comment or anything specific that you might notice on the slides, please feel free to do so. And Kaushik, with your permission, can I also ask a few questions in between to people who might volunteer to answer them?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. So Kaushik spoke about the Deming Prize. This is just a few pictures of us when we got the Deming Prize. It was not 1 year back, it was 2 years back, but the memories are still fresh. And this is a picture with Dr. Kano. That's some of us in Tokyo celebrating the prize. We were the first service sector organization, that's Indus Towers, to get this prize in India. We are the 5th globally, and I think about 32 companies now in India have had the Deming Prize being conferred on them. It's a great honor to be part of that forum, and we look forward to more and more companies joining that bandwagon, including yours, which Kaushik spoke of. The agenda for today is fairly simple. We'll take about 40 minutes to cover these 3 topics, followed by a Q&A session. And without further ado, I'll jump straight into the Kano model, which all of we've been talking about for some time now. And before we talk about the Kano model, I think it's important to talk about Dr. Kano himself. So I thought I'll put a slide out there for you to know who he is. He's basically a very renowned consultant from Japan. He's close to about 80 now, and he behaves like he's 25. Uh, he's been consulting a lot of companies in India on their TQM journey. He's responsible for many of them having received the Deming Prize. Uh, Most importantly, he is a direct mentee of Dr. Ishikawa. Dr. Ishikawa is somebody who actually welcomed Dr. Deming when he went to Japan after the World War to rebuild the economy. And the journey of the manufacturing in Japan thereafter is, for all of us to know, the history is absolutely great. And today, Japanese products are, best known in the markets. And both, Mr. Ishikawa and Dr. Kano have played a huge role in that space. And of course, Dr. Deming, who was actually an American, who came to Japan to fulfill some of those damages that had been caused, after the World War II. And he's been, a name to reckon with in Japan ever since. And the prize that we talk about is named after him, obviously. So that's a bit about Dr. Kano. And by the way, that's a picture of mine with him on the top left-hand side. The third or fourth time that we met in Tokyo. He's quite active in the JUSE forums there. JUSE is the Japanese Union of Scientists and Engineers, the organization that sets up most of these seminars that take place there. So talk about the Kano model now. And I think before we talk about the Kano model, it's important to understand what context Kano model is set in. And the context really is, customer needs, customer requirements. And if I show you a few pictures here, you might be able to relate to what I'm trying to say. This is a car that you would have seen if you were born in the 20s. And if you were a rich person in that time, you'd probably buy this car as one of the best available in the market. If you were born in the 50s, you'd probably, this car would be your, absolutely obvious choice. And if somebody's born today, like some of us, BMWs, fancy ones seem to be the hour of the day, the need of the day. Now the question here is, what has changed? And I'm going to pause here for a moment and request people to unmute and give your comments, quick ones, if possible, please. What has changed? Why don't I want this car of the 1920s today? Anybody, please. I'd really appreciate your comments. There is no bad comment here. All comments are welcome.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, please go ahead. We can hear
Sir, this could be because of change of choice.
you. Okay.
In terms of model, what we can say, or the better quality for the what we can say, the advanced technology, comfort, luxury. These are the now choices.
Very good. Thank you very much. That's Dr. Rituraj Sharma, right? Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much,
Thank you.
Dr. Sharma. That is a
Yeah,
very okay.
I feel paradigms have changed. Yesterday we were looking only for going from one place to other, and today we are looking for going one place to other with a lot of comfort, which were unimaginable yesterday.
So Manoj, thank you for that. I think you made a very interesting point, just like Dr. Sharma as well. And I'm sorry if I don't get the names right. Please bear with me. I'm just going by what I'm seeing on the screen. So yes, you made a very important point that customer requirements have changed, right? Now, why do customer requirements change is the question. And Kano model actually talks about that and how the repercussions of some of these customer requirement changes pan out in our production scheme of things. So that's really the point being made here. If I go to the next slide, it's all about the attributes of the product that we are making, the way it's perceived by the customers that undergoes a change, right? Now, what was a luxury yesterday becomes a necessity today, and we'll see how that happens. And that's really what the Kano model is based around. Okay, he broadly breaks up the voice of the customer, VOC, as we all might have heard about it, into 4 broad categories. He talks about what is expected of any product that a customer needs. He talks about what are those features in that product which if given more of would be creating that much more satisfaction for the customer. So one is what is expected. One is what you will get more of will improve your satisfaction that much more. The third is what you don't expect to get, but if you get, you're very, very happy. And we can think of a lot of examples on those lines, and we'll talk about those as well. And there is a fourth category, which is regardless of whether you get it in that product or not, it doesn't matter. So these are the four broad categories of the voice of customer that Dr. Kano focuses on in his model. And basically, it's a pictorial representation, and you've got a small image of a hand-created Kano model on the right side. We'll talk a little bit more about in details in the next slide. But that's how it's analyzed, and that's how a finalized Kano model would look like if you were to do it for any of your products. Now, if I was to make a graph, a simple x-axis, y-axis graph, and put my features of the product on the x-axis and my satisfaction levels on the y-axis, this is what a simple graph would look like. I don't think there would be any questions on this, right? Now, let us reflect back on that black-colored car of the 1920s. And this is where I want you to unmute again and tell me what you think. So somebody said features, comforts, and those kind of things. So my question to the group is, what would you have expected from that car in the 1920s if you were to buy it? You would not have expected a Bluetooth in that car, right?
Most
what would you have
affordable.
expected?
Might be most affordable.
Affordable you expect today also. But in terms of the feature of the car, what would you expect?
Mileage.
Mileage. Would you look at mileage in the 1920s when petrol was coming at 1 pence a gallon?
Maybe safety and reliability.
Safety is questionable because safety is basically what is the definition of safety? Nothing is safe till the time we make sure that there is absence of precautions being taken. So unless accidents take place, one doesn't recognize the importance of safety. But since there were no cars before that, safety was not a really a big thing at that time.
You are right. In those times, the minimum or maximum expectation was that you get an option of traveling one point to another better than bullock cart or a bicycle.
Super. Who was that? May I know your name, please?
I am Manoj Sharma.
Manoj again. So thank you, Manojji. That was absolutely a very, very clear-cut interpretation of where I was trying to go. You'd want the car to go from one place to another. You'd probably also expect it to have a steering and some brakes and things like that, right? That, okay, it's going to replace a bullock cart. I'm going to get from one place to place B. And that really is this green arrow that you see here. I'll try and highlight this for you. Is what one looks at. So if you don't have that feature, the customer will definitely be dissatisfied. But if you have that feature, the customer will not be excited. It's almost like an expected thing that will take me from place A to place B, and it'll have a steering wheel, it'll have 4 wheels, and so on and so forth, whatever we spoke of. So that really is the first category of features that Mr. Kano talks of, which is actually referred to as the must be or expected features. Now let's come to the second category. The more we have of it, the better it would be. Now this is where perhaps another example could come in. Maybe I can throw one at you and then perhaps get one back from you all. In those days, the roads were meant for bullock carts, probably a car that was less bumpy. So the less bumpy the car, perhaps the higher the satisfaction. Would that be a fair example? Any others that you can think of in today's term? One of you spoke about mileage. In today's world, yes, the better the mileage, the more the satisfaction. The less the mileage, the less the satisfaction. So it's like a linear relationship that we have. So anybody can think of any other examples here?
Sir, hello.
Sir, we
Yeah,
can
please go
talk
ahead.
about the generation of internet which comes today. So first, the second generation was there. So we
Hmm.
just expect that merely the messages and mails were accessed and things move on quite smoothly that time. Then 3G
Hmm.
came. So we started expecting of videos also and images also were more used that time. Now 4G came. So we are expecting that the whole movie should run without any buffering and
Okay.
5G is also planned. So
Hold on.
expectations are rising.
Hold on to that thought. What's your name? Sorry.
I am Priyaj Gandhi.
Priyaj. Priyaj, just hang on for 1 minute. I will come back to you. That's a great example you picked up. We will just pick it up in 2 minutes from now. Uh, let's talk about the linear one and we'll come back to what you just said, Priyaj. So in today's world, if you look at the same internet example that Priyaj spoke of, if an internet supplier is giving you bandwidth or speed, the higher the speed, the more satisfied you get, right? And the lower the speed, the less satisfied you are. Would that be a fair example? Okay, so that actually is an example of this category, which is really what we call as a one directional or a primary satisfier. So you understand the difference between a must be or an expected quality versus a one directional, which is a primary satisfied quality. So these are the two kinds that Dr. Kano spoke of. And then there is a third kind. And the third kind is somewhat similar to what Priyaj was talking about, that we have uh, the blue arrow here, which actually the if you have it, it is a delight. But if you don't have it, the customer may not miss it. Uh, any examples that you can think of besides the one Priyaj mentioned? Any thoughts on smartphone cameras nowadays?
Hello. Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, we can take an example for the hospital as well, where patient comes for the treatment purpose only.
Mm-hmm.
But when they get the additional services like Wi-Fi free zone or prompt services or the kind of help to them or the personal attention, they will be more satisfied. But if these supportive services will not be there and treatment they get at their expectation, they could be satisfied only.
Perfect. Perfect. That's a great example. That's Dr. Rituraj again.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rituraj. That's a perfect example in your domain, I think, coming up. Uh, and I will ask you a further question if you don't mind just elaborating on this. There is a, I hope no patient has to come to you again and again. I hope that happens as well. Let's assume for a moment that a patient has been coming to you for the last 3 years and you've been giving him this free Wi-Fi and internet connectivity uh, every time he's there. And then one fine day, your management decides to stop giving this Wi-Fi connectivity to that customer or to those customers who come to your hospital. What would you think happen? What would you think will happen?
He might get little dissatisfaction, but his primary focus will be on treatment and doctor's behavior or whatever. He must be satisfied with the treatment because he came for the treatment purpose.
Assume for a minute. Assume for a minute that there is a hospital in the next house, which is equally good as compared to yours, but that one has internet and continues to supply internet. Then what happens?
Yeah, maybe his perception could be changed.
So what's happening here is a very interesting phenomenon. Over time, what you're seeing is actually the what you were calling as delighters have now become what we call as expected, right? What's happening is that you've made the customer so used to a certain luxury that today that customer will not do without it. He will not accept your services without it. So the point being made here is that the attractive quality of today will become the must-be quality of tomorrow. And you can see this in the smartphone camera example that I was just trying to give you. That Earlier, phones with cameras was considered to be a luxury. But today, if you ask your kid or anybody who's going to buy a phone, younger generation, they will not accept a phone without a camera. I don't even think there are any phones available in the market without cameras anymore, right? So what was a luxury yesterday has become a necessity today. So the message here is that it's very important for us to be sure of what delighters we are providing to our customers, because those delighters could well become part of the package that we offer to the customer tomorrow. And as an organization which is focusing on customers as well as on its profitability, we need to be wary of these two balances that need to be had at all times. And therefore the Kano model actually tries to categorize some of these into these four categories. And of course the last one I've not spoken about, that's the indifferent one that that is shown here. There are many that fall in that. That's the one here. It doesn't matter, right? And I mean, in the car, for a person who's not an engineer, it doesn't matter if the horn is made of stainless steel or high-grade plastic. As long as the horn works, it's fine, right? So broadly, these are the four categories that Kano model talks about. And you could actually, and like you already done, you could actually, put your products into this model and see, as an organization, what you would like to categorize in which category. Yeah, thanks. Anybody who's not speaking, if you can be on mute, that'll be great. Thank you so much. And that's really the Kano model. That's it. There's nothing more to it. And it's very simple and it's easy to use, and you can apply it to your hospital, to your work, to your home, everywhere, and see how you'd like to use it to your benefit. Let's take some examples here before we go to the next few slides. Just a little wary of time as well. So some more examples here. We spoke about the brakes and steering wheel in a car, which are must-be's. Primary satisfiers, which is the second category. The longer the life of a product, the happier the customer is. Delighters could be, if you order food or if you order some kind of a product from Amazon, they deliver it to your place. Superb. But if they stop doing it, you will not be a happy customer. So therefore, it becomes part of the deal. And we spoke about the indifferent ones as well. Another example here is what paint you put inside the light of a car. It has no consequence as long as the light is adequate for a driver to use at night. So that's really what the Kano model stands for. And are there any questions at this stage? We'll have the Q&A at the end, but if there's anything specific that you'd like to point out at this point in time, I'd be happy to pause and take that. Otherwise, we can move on. Okay. So then let's just go to the last slide on the Kano model, and this is really food for thought. And what Kaushik spoke of some time back, you could all think through this, and if you go and do your homework, you want to come back 3 weeks later, some thoughts you could use. What is your must-be quality today, right? How do you define it? If it is a must-be quality, is it sustainable? Because many organizations make this mistake of jumping to the delighter category very quickly without ensuring that their must-be quality is actually in place and sustainable. So don't assume, it's just a word of caution here, don't assume that what you're offering to the customers as a must-be is actually going to be there throughout, unless you make sure there is some kind of a check and balance in place to make sure it's sustainable. It's not wise to jump to the delighter category very quickly. So please see if it's sustainable. If you think you have any attractive quality features, what are those? And what would you like to aspire for in that category in the future? The attractive features that you might have today, are they sustainable if they were to become must-be tomorrow? So food for thought there as well. And of course, if you want to be profitable, despite wanting to do all the great work that you all do, how much will it cost you to move the attractive quality features into a must-be quality feature for tomorrow? So some things that you can think through. Now there are other, so basically these are things from the customer side which tend to impact the kind of products that you offer or how your products evolve, right? Now, if you look at some of the other factors which also affect the life of a product, for example, if you look at PCs in the early 1900s, what was the focus? the focus used to be on assembling the PC and selling the PC. Was there any great after service? I don't think so. I remember buying PCs in the good old days, and once you had bought the PC, it was your problem. There was no focus on the quality of parts as well. It was more of assembling and selling. So this is how the curve looked like in the early days, right? It was a reverse smiley. But today, the industry is evolving. The industries are evolving rather. And the focus is now on making sure good grade parts are made available to assemble. Assembly and sales is more of automation now. There is a lot of robotics involved. And if you want to retain your customers, then you need to make sure that you have a good after sales service, which is the reverse curve now. So you can see the curve is reversed. And this is another feature you want to look at in terms of the perception of value that your organization is providing to its customers. Where is your strength? Is it in after service or not? If somebody comes to you, does he want to come again or not? Those are some of the things that can also impact the kind of customers, the kind of products that you offer your customers. One other thing that you want to look at as customers' products evolve is the life of that product. There are 3-4 stages to a product, and one is when the introduction phase is there, then the product starts to grow if it's a good product. It reaches a certain level of maturity at one time, and then gradually it starts becoming obsolete. As an organization, or good organizations would make sure that they are able to nail the time at which they start seeing the product going into that obsolete mode and start taking actions to improve it or develop something more innovative, which will help them continue to have that curve moving up rather than it dipping the way it's being shown in this graph. So these are a few things that you want to consider for your product lifecycle, including what the Kano model would offer you in terms of customer insights. Now, now interestingly, the Kano model is very closely linked to the second tool that we're going to talk about, which is the house of quality. And before I go to the house of quality, I would again pause and see if there's any questions or comments to be made by anyone here, please. No questions, no comments at this time?
So Uday, a quick question.
Yes, question.
You're doing the Kano model. You obviously do it with some amount of interaction with customers, or in our hospital scenario, it would be patients. So typically these interviews are done in a freewheeling conversation, or is it done in a very structured manner where you try and get them to rank attributes? How does it actually work?
See, that's a very interesting question, and it's got multiple answers, but I'll try and give you logically what we should be doing. And depending on that, we can use whatever tools we think are appropriate. The spirit of the discussion with the customers must be to get to the real need of the customer. If that can be achieved through a survey, nothing like it. If it can be achieved through informal conversation, I think that's better too. The whole idea is to be able to collect accurate data for us to then apply into that model and then see where we land. So there are tools and techniques available in the quality world, which can be used. To name a few, there's a few metrics that can be used. There is the QFD, which can be used, which we're going to talk about right after this. And there is extensive surveys that can be done as well. Informal chats are a great value if the collation of that information happens in the right way. So there is no right answer here, but the spirit should be to be able to get as accurate information as possible.
And when you talk of the product life cycle, again, is this something that you do internally in terms of an analysis, or again, you look across industry or look at industry-wide reports? How does that come? Or again, does it come out from your customer interactions?
It's mostly done internally on the basis of the environment that's there around you. So normally, if you do a new product launch, what's taken into account is the life cycle of the product and the obsolescence cycle that it might follow. And most good organizations will always have some kind of an yearly or a periodic review of the relevance of the product in the market, because technology is changing very, very quickly. And especially in the telecom world where I come from right now, we make sure we look at our products every 3 to 4 months to see the relevance, because there's a lot of dependencies on some of the other active equipment suppliers basis which we design our own products. So if, to give you an example, we build a tower and we pay rental for that space that we take from the landlord. I might need 400 square feet today because the active equipment being supplied by an Airtel or a Vodafone is occupying X square feet of space. But if that equipment is going to occupy 1/10 the space tomorrow, then I don't need to look at 400 square feet. I can probably do with 40 square feet. So there is a relevance to the environment, but the reviews must be done internally, and that's where the collation of all the information that you spoke of from outside would come and sit. I hope that answers your question, Kashing.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any others, or can I move on? Okay. So then I'll just quickly jump to the QFD, which is the House of Quality, as many of us know it as. Now, this is a very interesting tool in the context of the Kano model, and I'll tell you why it is important. The Kano model looks something like this. It's got all kinds of shapes and sizes. I've just put a few pictures here for your own benefit, so you can see. Don't be surprised if you see versions of the Kano model. Basically, it all means the same thing. And what the QFD really does is, the Kano model is thrown at you what the customer really wants, right? Or what is attractive to the customer, what is a must be for the customer, so on and so forth. Now, the QFD will help you understand how relevant it is to design what the customer is wanting. How much is it going to cost you? Is it making business sense for you to have some of those features as part of your business plan, or are there some changes that you would like to incorporate? Now, that really means gathering customer requirements and then marrying them into the technology, or the product specifications that you might want to have as part of this as you go and make that product, and then see if it's a feasible option to have certain features or not. It's also a great tool, as you will see, to map yourself against competition and understand where you stand on various portions of that requirement that the product might be asking you to look into. So we'll just talk a little bit about that. Just a quick background: the QFD, or the Quality Functional Deployment, as it's called, was introduced in the early 60s by this gentleman called Mr. Akau. He used to work in the Kobe shipyard for Mitsubishi at that time, and various other people have followed this model, and it's now an integral part of most manufacturing setups, as you would hear. Basically, what it does is it looks at the customer requirements, spoken or unspoken. Some of the requirements are unspoken because the customer may also know sometimes what he or she needs. So we call them latent needs, and there are ways and means to identify those latent needs. One of them being interviews, or speaking to the technology department of the customer and trying to also benchmark against the international standards, practices, and things like that. And then telling the customer, hey, this is what exists in the US today. Do you see this coming to you tomorrow? A great example being 5G. 5G is not there in India right now, but we're expecting it to hit us sooner or later. And it's time. Most of the telecom companies are working at the back end, trying to gear up and make sure that we're all prepared when 5G does come here. So a lot of the latent needs, the customer may not know what he needs in terms of 5G, but we need to figure out, plan better. And then how do we translate those requirements into technical characteristics and specifications around that product, and then build a quality product that will work in the market. Now, how does this tool work? Just a few illustrations I'll try and, frankly, QFD is a full day exercise, okay, even 2 days sometimes. So I'm going to try and cover it in 12 or 13 minutes. So bear with me if you don't get the full gist of it, but I'll try and give you a high level picture to the best of my ability. So there is, the voice of the customer on the left side, which is here. And what the business says in terms of how we will achieve that voice of the customer. So the customer says, I want, somebody mentioned earlier in the discussion that I want a price friendly product or a car, which is within my budget. So that's what the customer would say here, where I've marked in red. Now the engineering team would be scratching their heads to figure out, how do I give a cheap product? So what material do I use? what kind of screws do I use, what kind of welding do I do, so on and so forth. It could be a series of things. So the what is what the customer needs, and the how is what the product team or the technology team would try and marry into that requirement of the customer. Now, what happens therefore or thereafter is that there is a whole mishmash of what the customer is wanting, because the customer is wanting 6, 7 things or even 10 things many times, and the technology team is trying to cater to one, perhaps will end up compromising on the other. There'll be conflicts and so on and so forth. So there is some kind of a method that the QFD allows us to create. And what you see on the right is basically mapping customer requirements on the y-axis, which is the watts, as you can see here, this part, and mapping the how or the technology specifications on the x-axis, which you see here. And I'll show you an example of this, so don't worry. Now, what happens then is that you're able to build relationships between each of these. And I'll show you how. And what we also do is we give some kind of a weightage to customer requirements here. So it's 1 to 5 is the scale that we use, and we kind of understand. And this is, by the way, Kaushik, to your point, spoken to with the customers itself. They give the feedback in terms of what's important for them, because this is their input to our product. So we rate it on a scale of 1 to 5 and give the weightage, and then we build these relationships. So you have some symbols that you can see against each. So if this is what the customer wants, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and if this is what the product team says in terms of what they will incorporate features in, then you see these little symbols that you see. There is a key here. There is a key here, and if the collective wisdom of the team is that it's a strong relationship, then, for example, 2 is having a strong relationship with one customer requirement. So this, let's assume this one customer requirement is having a cheap car, and the 2 says I will use, let's say, a cheap metal. Maybe I will use steel instead of using titanium to build this car. So therefore, this customer expectation is getting met through this. So there is a strong relationship. Similarly, there might be weak relationships elsewhere. This one is a weak relationship. This one is a weak relationship. So like that, we are able to see which relationship is panning out how against which customer requirement in a matrixed format, right? And what we do is we give weightages to each of these in different, on the scale of 1 to 9. So this one is 9. This one would be a 3. This one would be a 1. And you see you've given weightages here, you've given weightages to each of these categories, and you'll end up with some kind of a multiplier here, which I will just run you through. So this is, for example, a low noise requirement given by one customer. And this gentleman here is, the technology team here says, I will provide low clearance between the shaft and the body, right? Now, it could be a weak, it could be a medium, it could be a strong. So that is how the mapping takes place. Right. So you do that for all the what's and the hows that you have, and you end up with a weightage at the bottom when you do the scoring. And you'll have to do this, you'll have to use this tool to be able to appreciate what I'm trying to say here by actually doing the maths and the multiplications. I've given an example further so you might get a better view. Now, many times what also happens is that the technology requirements which are here also tend to have relationships amongst each other. There is a way to map that as well. So if you see here, if this is technology 1, technology 2, 3, 4, and so on, let's say 5, 6, 7, 8, and 7. So you see this 8 is, how is it mapping against 1? That will get captured here. How is 3 mapping against 7? So 7 is here and 3 is here. So you put that here. So this also gives you a flavor of how your technological inputs to create customer are complementing or hampering each other. And it helps you make decisions from a technology standpoint in terms of product design. You can further add to this. You can further add, uh, let's say you have 5 competitors, or you have 3 competitors in this case. Then in that case, you can actually map how you're faring against each of these against your competitor. You can also map how some of these features are faring against each other in terms of weightages. So there are ways to look at the relationships between customer requirements and technical requirements versus your competition and versus your customer both. This is an example that I've tried to showcase here. I'll try and articulate this for you. So look at this part, right? So a customer says, I want a lightweight product. I've given it a weightage of 3. And it says the relationship to noise output is very, very weak, because obviously a lightweight product to noise output is not, well, it's medium, sorry, in this case. So you have 3. So there is a weightage 3 given here. There is a weightage 3 as a result of this triangle, which says it's a medium relationship. So the product is 9. Likewise, you want a quiet product, 5. It's a strong relationship, 9. Because of that 139 scale, you end up with 45. Like that, if you total it, you end up with 57. And those are totals you get here. So you will know which feature out of the technology features is actually having the maximum weightage. So as you can see, in this case, 89 is the highest score. And therefore, that technology feature is actually going to be closest to what your customer needs to have as part of, or that technology feature will be the most important when you design your product in order to meet your customer requirements. So I know it's a little complicated, but like I said, it's the first time when you hear it, it is complicated, but if you do it with your own hands, you will understand how simple and friendly it might be. There is a template that you can use, and it's all handwork after that. It's not very complex. I'll try and show you an example of, I have one here, of a complete QFD, right? This is the complete QFD in which you have customer requirements on your left, you have engineering features on the top, you have the linkages here between the engineering features, you have all the relationships between the customer requirements and the engineering features here, you have the match that we spoke of here, and you have the customer, the competition ranking against each of these features on the right side. So what you are very clear about now is what are those features that you want in the technology team to work on, which are going to be customer centric. Also against the competition, where are you faring against each of these requirements that the customer has set for you? So what happens is, if you are faring badly on some of these parameters, then after the QFD is done, you will take measures to improve yourself and come higher and higher on the scale before the production starts, hopefully. So that's really how the QFD helps in inputting some of the production requirements to the way we design a product. So I spoke about new product development, right? It's very essential for survival of companies. We spoke about that smiley curve at the back. There are various other reasons why QFD is useful. One other very important feature about QFD is that it actually helps conflicting teams come on the same page, because there is an objective discussion that takes place, and it's not only in the air. You know, when somebody says I like this and somebody says I like that, this is actually a mathematical model that helps us gauge what to do and what not to do as part of a product development exercise. So this, my friends, is QFD. It's called the House of Quality. And I'm sorry I had to rush through it because of paucity of time, but I can send more details on this in case you'd like. There is a lot of material there on the net in case you'd like to access it. I can share a template with Kaushik and he can circulate amongst you in case you want to take a stab at using it as well. Okay. That brings me to the end of the second topic. And I know I'm a little, well, I'm almost on time. We started 10 minutes late. So I'll try and complete the next section in about 7 minutes from now. And we should be good after that for the Q&A. The next section, which is the third section, is about the TQM linkage to these tools. And Kaushik spoke about TQM, the earlier part of his discussion, his introduction. And we'll talk about how these link up into the journey that you're trying to be on. But I will pause here. I will pause here and I will open up this for any comments from anybody or observations that you might want to share. Okay. I guess there are no observations at this stage. We'll wait for the Q&A. Okay, so TQ. Yeah, go ahead, please.
I think, as you have rightly said, that little practice will make it easier, because right now, as a first impression, it is looking like a production enhancing tool. QFD is looking like a.
Which
but
it is.
I think definitely we'll attempt to practice it and find it some good out of it.
Sure. So let me just tell you that yes, it is a production enhancement tool, but today, there is a very fine line between production and service. I went to the Komatsu factory in Japan 2 years back, and was talking to the plant head there. We were on a Jusei visit from a quality standpoint, and he said, 20 years back we used to make bulldozers, right? Now we make bulldozers, but our sales team does not sell bulldozers. We actually sell solutions. So if somebody in South Africa wants a mine to be, cleaned up, or if they want, 250,000 tons of copper to be delivered, we send our people to the mine with our bulldozers, and we do the entire, cradle to grave operation. We don't just stick to supplying the bulldozer to the person who's handling the mine. So nowadays there is a very fine line between manufacturing and service. It's all moving towards service, and that's the field that you're from actually. So this might sound like it's a product enhancement tool, but actually it's also a very good tool to use with service enhancement. And you can try it; it'll work. Okay, so coming back to my third agenda item, which is TQM linkage. So this is what we typically refer to as the TQM pyramid. This is my last 2 slides, by the way. This is the TQM pyramid, and in the center of this pyramid, and I'll tell you why not on top, is customer, right? Customer is always king when it comes to TQM. There is no second, person who decides how your product looks like and has to feel like. The customer is the final go on this, and his go and say is always to be treated as the only gospel truth. Now, to meet the customer expectations, we have to look at the quality standards to be absolutely number 1, non-negotiable. That's a big support to the customer focus that we want to create. We also want to make sure that our products and services are, standard. They are not, or at least predictable. So if a customer walks into your hospital, or if a patient walks into your hospital, every time he knows he's going to get past the queue in exactly 3 minutes. It'll be a nice experience for him, and he will leave his place on time. He will plan his day accordingly, and he'll come back satisfied. But if he was to come to your hospital and spend 3 hours in the queue on one day and 3 minutes in the queue the next day, well, the day of 3 minutes he'd be very happy, but the day of 3 hours he'll go back extremely unsatisfied. Very strong chance he might not come back. So process orientation, standardized outcomes, and predictable outcomes is something that TQM focuses on. This is all supported by, of course, it was very nice to hear, all the employees getting involved in the quality journey that we spoke of earlier. The spirit of the team coming together to solve some of these things is extremely critical. Look at who's the downstream recipient of your products, your services within the organization. He's your customer. Coordinated consensual approach, use of statistical tools to solve problems, and of course going to the Gemba, which is really going to the shop floor in the manufacturing world, as we call it. In your case, it's going to be the hospital floor, to figure out what's really going on. And if you have a problem, then go to that place, see what the problem is, observe what the issue is, and then solve it, rather than relying on people to come and give you information, because that normally does not augur well from an accuracy point of view. But what's right on top of the pyramid is something which actually is very close to what you all are doing, and that is the respect for humanity. TQM talks about the respect for humanity as one key outcome of being adopted, and it is actually a proven business case across companies that have actually adopted TQM. in the right way, that if they have the respect for humanity, profits automatically follow. It's not the profit that you need to go after, but if you go after how you can do service in the larger good of humanity, profits would eventually follow and profitability would take place. So with customer in the center and the respect for humanity, the all-encompassing theme, TQM is actually a very good tool to help organizations succeed. Now, we talk about TQM in a very generalized way. It's called total quality management, but not many of us know that it has a lot of elements within it. And my last slide will just try and touch upon a few of those elements to give you a flavor of what TQM stands for and where Kano model and QFD will fit into that larger framework of TQM. TQM has, if you imagine your business to be a boat, a large cruise ship, which is going in a particular direction. And this is really what you can, this is like the surrogate for the strategy of your company, that you're going in a certain direction. And this is the island that this beautiful island that this ship is going towards. And you suddenly see that there is some rough weather in this island. You change direction. You normally change direction. And changing directions, is quite, it's similar to changing the strategy of a company. And what governs this strategy formulation as part of one of the TQM principles is called a concept called policy management, which really, which is how you design your 5-year plans, how you break up your yearly targets, how do you disseminate those yearly targets within the company, how do you review the progress that has been made month on month, week on week, and that really is policy management. That's the first element of TQM. Then in the same ship, you have staff which is working 24/7. So they're running the engine, right? They're making sure everybody is comfortable. And that is a concept of daily management. So basically, daily management, if done well, will make sure that policy management is happening effectively across the entire year. These are deeper concepts, but just skimming through the surface right now. So daily management is a second very, very important principle of TQM. And we've not yet come to Kano and QFD yet. I'll tell you where that sits. The third element of TQM is that everybody must own quality. And I'm so happy to hear that you'll try and adopt that principle. It's very important that quality is not the quality manager's problem. It is important that quality is everybody's problem, because the customer has to be given quality first. And if everybody does not own quality, we are bound to drop the ball somewhere. So total employee involvement. The fourth element is to make sure, talking about quality, we have a quality assurance framework across the entire organization. So anything that we do, right from serving our customers to ensuring our paperwork is done properly, our taxes are filed on time, our products are of high quality, our tests being done in our laboratories of the highest quality, the hiring that we do is of the best quality, all that is governed by the QA framework of an organization. Just to tell you how important it is from a TQM point of view, if an organization were to apply for the Deming Prize, their application would not be entertained if they don't have an established QA framework. That's how important quality assurance is in the TQM parlance. That's the fourth element. Then you have the fifth element, which is new product development. And this exactly is where the Kano model and the QFD would fit. New product development happens in line with what the customer wants. And the Kano model actually tells you what the customer wants. The QFD actually tells you how relevant the creation of that product for the customer would be for your organization. And therefore, the QFD and Kano model would probably fit best into the fifth element of TQM, which is the new product development. And the last one is this statistical quality control or continuous improvement, or PDCA as we all call it. Is that being practiced? You're not taking, you're not entitling yourself by saying, now I've reached nirvana and I can't improve anymore. That's never going to happen. I started my conversation with that this is a never-ending journey, but every step forward is a step in the right direction. And that's really what the number 6 element of TQM stands for. This boat model, by the way, also is the creation of Dr. Kano. And I use it quite often to explain how these elements come together. And this, of course, is normally supported by in today's world, by a very robust, IT platform, without which nothing moves nowadays, I guess. So that's really the TQM model, the boat model, as I call it, and as Dr. Kano calls it. Just wanted to give you this context so you understand where the earlier two tools that we used actually fit into the larger framework of TQM. So that's the end of my presentation, my friends. Kaushik, I hope I'm not over time. Thank you very much. And I'm open to take any questions that might be there after this. Kaushik?
Yeah, I mean, I was waiting to see if anybody had any queries.
Sure.
I think Dr. Ruminder has a question that she's put on the chat. Ruminder, I think it would be best if you could just unmute yourself and ask it.
Yeah, that'll be better. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi.
So we feel that in a hospital, the customer has two types of needs. One would be psychological and one would be materialistic. So the QFD would be applicable to both types of needs or only the materialistic ones?
It'll be applicable to both needs. In fact, there are more, it'll be applicable to those as well. So anything that the customer wants must be mapped on the y-axis, and you can use the QFD quite effectively for that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Good question. It's actually a great way to look at the service sector adopting tools such as the QFD. Because to me, it makes perfect sense to use these kind of tools in our service industry as well. I'm saying our because I'm also from the same, I'm not from an industry as critical as the kind of work that you do. But yes, we also do some critical work. The reason why we are able to talk today on this VC is because we exist. We've got these towers that are making sure that our communications are taking place. And we've used these quite effectively, so it's absolutely relevant. Thank you. Any other questions? No question is a bad question. All questions are good.
So good afternoon, Geeta here. Just
Thank you.
wanted to know, like, is there any, an ideal timeline or a standard timeline for getting the feedback from the customers, and then a timeline for analyzing it and then implementing it, and then again reviewing what we have done?
No, the faster the better. That's the only thumb rule that one should follow, because every industry is different, and the responses from customers are different. And like I said earlier, it depends on the kind of via media you're using to get customer feedback. If it is an annual survey, then you have to wait one full year. And that's why I'm not a big fan of annual surveys, because it gives you the results once the damage is done. What you can get more proactively is what you should look at. And that's where the informal chats, go a long way, as long as you have a good framework to absorb that information and process it. So,
Okay.
so the faster the better is the answer to your question.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Riyaj, I'm not sure whether you're trying to ask a question. I can see you mute and unmute.
Sir, I was just, I had just made a question, articulated, I was just articulating that. Like the continuous improvement is one of the part which comes later in the TQM thing. But like many times the recommendation which gives the continuous improvement involves so much of funds. Like if we talk about the hospital industry, and we have already discussed like updating the technologies and all these things would surely give us continuous improvement, but it involves so much of costs. Like if we talk about hospitals, various machines like MRI and all, and for eye industry of hospital, optical industry also, the laser and all, the machines are very costly. So for continuous improvement, we have to also think about that how much ROI for that. So how can these two models help in that?
Yeah, so it's very important to differentiate between continuous improvement and continuous ROI. Okay, ROI is something which the finance team can easily help you with. If you want to buy an MRI machine or a special machine in ophthalmology that will work better for your hospital, attract more customers, by all means, you will do it. TQM is all about how do you improve with the existing resources. How can you drive efficiencies into your system? It's not about spending more money. In fact, it's about spending less and getting more out of your existing infrastructure. It's not to say that don't invest. It absolutely says by all means invest, take a good decision financially and do it. But it's not something that you need PQM to drive for you. That's a business sense that will prevail with the CFO and the head of the business, and I'm sure they'll take those decisions. PQM will play a role in making sure your existing infrastructure is being used more effectively. Yes, there are some expenses that one tends to incur in driving the TQM culture, but those are not as high as the ones that you're probably referring to. So one has to look at it TQM in that light.
Got it, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Sir, as we talked, quality is an ongoing process, and we are dealing with the service industry where customers visits us and we have to give the services. If lot of customers are sitting and one customer who is just spoiling your quality of service, what the Kano model says in that case?
You're talking about an irate customer or a customer who's difficult to deal with, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So see, dealing with customers is an art. Okay, and that art has to be fulfilled by certain people within the organization who will make sure that whatever is the problem the customer is having is taken care of. PKM believes that no customer will make unnecessary noise unless provoked. So there is obviously something that we need to introspect if the customer is not happy, or if there is nothing wrong with what we've done and the customer is still irate, perhaps have an infrastructure or a system to explain to the customer that there is something that is outside the purview of this organization that he's being irritated about, and therefore should not be reacting on some of the issues that he might be because of us. So there is normally a protocol that is followed by all companies to make sure that situation is handled. But 99% of the times, I believe what the customer says or is irate about is normally solvable. And that 1% aberration will always be there. So don't take it to heart and try and solve it to the best of your abilities. My only advice to you. And just a small addition to what I said. Even in an irate customer, you will find something that he wants, right? And if what he wants is so you have to go past the irritation of the customer and figure out what is really needed here. And if that need can be fulfilled by you, then the customer can be handled by the experts. But that need, if missed, will come back in the form of another irate customer later. So it's important to capture that need and fix it if it is belonging to you, if the issue is belonging to you. And that is actually the PDCA loop, the plan, do, check, act loop that we talk about in quality. That if you find a gap, unless you find the root cause and fix it, the gap will continue to haunt you. But good question. It's a very, very relevant question in the service industry. Thank you for asking.
Thank you, sir.
I think thanks a ton, Uday. I'm sure there are a lot more questions. So this is a concept that we've out of the blue thrown at everybody, literally a googly, considering that we're just coming off the IPL season. But having said that, I think what has been a beauty of our entire Sankalp initiative is to try and pick industry best practices and see how it can be adopted into the hospital environment. So I'm sure that some of you have had some exposure to models of quality, but although a lot of this did look really, really difficult, the concept is very, very simple when you break it down into pieces. We've taken Uday's permission and recorded this entire presentation. We'll make it available so that some of you can access it a little later, go back to it and have a look at it. What we will also do is we'll try and break it up into steps, where initially we will ask all our 11 hospitals to first do the Kano in terms of analyzing it with the customers, and then we'll probably sit together, see what the common trends are, and see if we can build a QFD framework for that and see how we can implement it going forward. And to answer your question of saying that how do you look at ROI, that will help us plan our budgeting for the year ahead also, saying that this is something that our customers would be expecting in the coming year. And I think that is a great insight that we will be able to give to the operations team as well to the finance team from a quality standpoint. So once again, on behalf of all our colleagues at Shankara, Uday, thank you so much. I know I reached out to you on Sunday, really, really short notice, and thank you so much for obliging. It's a wonderful stage that you've set for us, a foundation for us to build on. And I'll also share the templates that you forward to me across to this group. And then from there, we will take it forward. We hope to come back to you sometime in December and tell you saying that we've done something out of what we've learned today.
Sure. Thank you very much, Kaushik. It's an honor, and it's a great pleasure to be part of such a lovely forum in which so much of love for quality is there. And I wish you good luck for your future endeavors, and I hope someday you challenge the Deming Prize and get it as well. Thank you so much. So I will log off then, and I thank everybody who attended and asked questions, and those who listened patiently. Thank you very much, and good luck to all of you. Thanks, Kaushik.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.